Hello and welcome to Parent Connection. I'm so glad that you guys are here at our North Fort Worth campus and online. I want to welcome you from Facebook to YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us. And if this is your very first time to be at a FOTP, Fellowship of the Parks Church event, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. We are thrilled that you've taken the time to be at our church. And so again, thank you for everyone here being a part of your investment into parenting. I can't think of anything better than to be a parent, a mom and a dad. So again, we are here to learn how can we be better parents, and I can't think of a better place for you to be. But before we get started, I just kind of wanted to share that I'm Roger Gibson. If we haven't met yet, I'm the marriage and family pastor here. And as we get going, I want to go ahead and give you this number for our Q&A. It is 817-482-3613. If you have a question while our speaker is talking and you may go, ooh, I would love to learn more about this, or I wonder how she would say this, ask that question. Just go ahead and text it in throughout the program, and we will make sure at the end when we do the Q&A for her to answer that question. So make sure you text the question that you see on the screen to the number you see on the screen, and so that way we can make sure we get that question answered for you. Also, connection card, if we can get you to fill that out, if you're online, go ahead and there's the link right there in the description, the comments. Go ahead and just click on that because one, we want to know that you're here, and two is you have any ideas what you think would be a great future topic for Parent Connection. We want to hear about that. I want to know what that is because we are here to serve you. We want to make sure we do the best we can to resource you, equip you for not only a healthy home, but a strong, loving home. So make sure you fill out the connection card on there, as well as put down what topic you want to hear about. Then also on there, we have prayer requests. As a church, we believe that God can do anything and God can move and do things that you can believe could happen. So if you have a prayer request, please put that on there as well because we will pray for those. Then Carrie and I just recently graduated from parenting. We have 3 kids. Our youngest is graduating from high school, but we just became grandparents. This is Brooks right here, my grandson right here. As of February 13th, we became grandparents. And I know so many times as a parent, we think, I'm going to kill him. But I got good news for you. You got better ones coming along right here. He is such a delight. He lives in Springfield, Missouri, so we're working hard to figure out how we can spend more time with Brooks. So I'm very proud of Brooks and proud of my son and his wife, our daughter-in-law, Savannah, as well as our 2 other kids, Hannah, who's in RN school right now, and then our youngest is ready to graduate from high school. I've been a parent for 33 years. I'm done. I'm ready to move on and become a full-time grandparent, but she has been a delight. All of our kids are awesome, and what I love most is they love being at home. But it takes a lot of work as parents, and being a dad, being a mom, it really does take a lot of sewing. We're working hard, but it does pay off on it. And if it doesn't pay off with them taking care of us, at least they give us something like this on it. So let's get on with the program. We have someone very special with us. In fact, I didn't know she's kind of a big deal on it. Our mental health director was asking me, hey, who do you have speaking? Who do you have coming to the Parent Connection? I said, Dr. Rhonda Johnson. She went, no, you got her? She is awesome. I take all my classes from her, so we are in a treat because anytime you have doctor in front of your name, you're kind of really smart. You know what you're talking about, and she is a PhD. She is someone that not only has her clinical degree and everything, but she also has her own in counseling center. So she owns and operates, the founder of, her and her husband, Jacob, the Center for Counseling and Family Relationships. She's been a part of this for a long time. She has lots of therapists, and when you came in, we'll get this to you as you guys are watching online, but her counseling center has lots of people that can service you and meet you right where you are at in your parenting journey. So make sure that you look her up, and you guys are in for a special treat as we are looking forward to learning how can we create house rules, but also at the same time enforce them, but also, this is what I love in my home, is greater harmony. How can we have greater harmony, greater peace, and as mom and dad, or single parent, grandparent, is knowing what the big idea, where are we taking our kids from? So please welcome Dr. Rhonda Johnson.
Well, I'm grateful to be here tonight with all of you and for the opportunity. God works in ways that we don't always see. And so when the call came last week, I wanted to be able to meet the need for each of you, and I'm grateful for that. So a little bit about me that doesn't have to do with the practice specifically. I've been in the field for a couple of decades now, a little bit longer than that. My husband Jacob and I have been married for 25 years. And then we have an adopted daughter who just got married, and she's 20. So it's a little bit about just home life. And then at our church, I've served in the kids ministry for about 15 years overall. And right now I serve mainly with the special needs kiddos that come through, and just making sure that our church is accommodating for them and that families can make it into the service and that the kids can really join into the classroom and learning more about God, just like all of us are trying to do in the process. So I will say a PhD just means that you stayed in school for a really long time. It doesn't mean you're any smarter than anyone else, and I definitely don't view myself that way. So I think it goes more back to, that's what tonight is about, is we all have wisdom that comes from the same place, in using the Bible and in using the resources that he's given us, as well as just finding out what works with families through the years as I've worked with them. And I've been honored to be able to have that privilege to do that with many through the years. And that's been a blessing to me too. So the topic for today, a little intimidating when you're like, house rules, that sounds so serious. So I think for tonight, I really just want to focus on getting to a foundation that we all, are on as parents. And as we continue to learn to parent, we're all coming from different backgrounds. We've had different life experiences. We have different children, different ages, different needs. And so getting to that point of recognizing what we have in common, and then looking at, my hope is that as we go through kind of each section of the topic tonight, I'll get to a next steps each time that we get to the end of it. And so you'll have 3 next steps after each section with a goal of just like, what is your next step? The goal is not to get overwhelmed and be like, I can't do all of this. None of us can on our own. So I think it's more about community and support. And if some of you see each other tonight and you're like, hey, we could hold each other accountable. We're headed into summer. Or, hey, a next step, maybe we need to pursue some counseling so we have some support on some of the things we talk about tonight. So just be encouraged in knowing you're not alone. I say very often, none of us grow up and don't think about, I wish my parent had, and change something there. And I can guarantee my daughter's going to have plenty of things. I have asked forgiveness for plenty of things already, and we're just starting young adulthood. So just know it's okay. You're going to make mistakes, and you're not going to have always done things right. But in the midst of it is have the encouragement to know you're here. You showed up tonight, whether you're in person or whether you're online, and that's a step. So take that and acknowledge that as we're together tonight, and just recognizing, okay, God got me here. Take a breath. You made it. Your kids are safe wherever they are right now. And so we have this time together to really look at, what does God want us to know together, and how can we be encouraged in a parenting journey? So those are my goals for tonight as we get started. Okay, the first thing as we jump in, let me see. So it's house rules and healthy boundaries. So I'll focus a little more on the healthy boundaries side because I like the sound of that a little bit better. So the hard truth, like the foundation, is to know that really we all focus on what's not going well. If I told you, tell me 2 great things about your child and 2 things that are really hard right now, you would go to the hard to deal with right now. There's just, if I said, tell me 2 things about yourself that you like and 2 things about yourself that you don't like, we just tend towards that negative. Life on earth is not meant to be where we're happy all the time, and content with everything. And so just knowing, okay, I can have this lens, and I know for me personally, it may not be for you, that I can also get into the point of like, what's going on right now? It's hard for me to keep like a bigger perspective and to recognize, okay, really, if I look at the last few weeks versus just the last 2 days. And so I have to really watch my perspective because I can focus more on what's not going well. At our home church we're at, we talk a lot about that we all have sad hearts. And that doesn't mean that you're sad like emotionally. What that means is that we're all selfish, arrogant, and damaging. No one had to teach a child to be selfish with their toys. You had to teach them to share. No one has to teach someone, how to focus on themselves and to only want to watch what they want to watch, when the TV's on. We have to focus on, okay, I need to think of others. It's a lot harder to put others first and to think of others than it is just to focus on self. And your child is focusing on self just as much as you're focusing on self. And so we have to recognize that that's when that clash can happen too. That can be where we're like, we need some house rules around here, and recognizing, okay, maybe we need some healthy boundaries, whichever perspective it is, whether it sounds more harsh or whether we're coming at it from a loving, perspective too. So in the middle of that, I don't know about you, but I'm also the Staples easy button. Does anybody just want an easy button? Like, I really, really want that easy button. And life just does not bring that often. Daily life is going to have struggles. I know in our home, every day we ask, like, what was your best and what was your worst? And it's very rare we don't have a worst answer, that there's something not to go with that one. And you got to think through what the best one is. And it's because I want things to be easier. Like, God, I'm really trying. I'm trying to do the right things. We're in church. I'm praying. I'm trying. Shouldn't it be easier? But that's not what we're guaranteed in this life. And parenting isn't guaranteed to be easy either. So if you recognize that, we can have a tendency to really want to compare to other people. Like, their life is so much easier. And maybe in one area it is, but I guarantee God has given them another area that's hard to deal with. And they're not all easy. So we can definitely get into that. So just recognize we've all got that same foundation. We're all selfish, arrogant, and damaging, and no one has it easy all the way. So I think the question becomes, how do we parent differently? And what does that even look like? If I'm not focused on the easy button, and just what's simple for me, like I got to hurry and get through this routine. Well, I got to get them to bed, and we got to do the homework. And okay, now we're headed to summer, and they've been on electronics all day, or all these different things, that we can worry about as parents. Is if we press pause, is how do we parent differently? So another piece is like, where do we find hope when life brings tension and trouble and transitions and parenting? Because that happens in life, period, for all of us as adults. But it also happens in parenting. And we don't want to acknowledge that there's going to be tension, or that there's going to be trouble, or that there's going to be transition. But if we lower our expectations and recognize that's part of growth for us and for our kids, and how God works in our lives, is if I recognize and I expect that, then I'm probably going to respond differently. And it's just really hard when you have your expectations set on something that's not met. When you've tried really hard and you're trying to apply things and you're trying to be the caring parent and you're trying to do all the things and just recognizing my trying is not going to be enough because I need God's help in the process of it too. And I think that's a big piece. So in the middle of that, we have to recognize that my hope can't be in Rhonda Johnson. It can't be in my spouse, my partner, anyone else, my parents, anyone else who's helping me in my life, because they're humans too. And ultimately, my hope has to be in God. And that means recognizing that if I am putting my trust in him, and if I am asking him to come alongside me and to give me what I need in that moment of parenting, then I'm not going to be alone. And I don't have to be afraid of what the future is going to bring, because I can know that he has a plan. Long term, something I've had to keep in mind is that God, someone gave me some very wise words one time. And even in the midst of all the struggles of parenting, it was the statement, do you realize that your daughter already has all the gifts and all the strengths and all the things that she needs to do what God has intended for her to do if she follows him? And I think just pressing pause on that, because you see the behaviors and you see the struggles and you see the hardships and the trouble and the tension and all the things, and it's really hard to keep that long-term perspective, but that will help you so much in the midst of those battles. When you're recognizing, I really need God's help in the middle of this, and my hope has to be in him. A great question that I love to use for myself and to even give to others, that I'll give you tonight, is what do you want your relationship to look like with your child or children 10 years from now? 10 years is a long time. I know even when I sign leases for the office, I'm like, okay, it's going to be a long time. And 10 years is double that. It's like, what, 10 years from now? How do I know what that's going to look like? But we have to have some kind of goal of just the relationship itself. I'm going to guess that most of you are here because you want to be in relationship with your child 10 years from now. And I'm going to guess you want that to be a close, positive relationship where you're still making memories together, where they know that you love and care about them, where they are, trying to strive to follow God, in his will for their lives. And so keeping that in mind as part of this, how do you set healthy boundaries? We've got to start there, because the decisions I make today and the relationship I build today, it is going to impact then. It will reap. Now, your child may not appreciate it today, and they may not love you tomorrow or even next year. Mine didn't either. But if you continue that consistency and thinking about that 10-year goal and praying through that 10-year goal, that is what our responsibility is in our stewardship, as parents. So I would encourage you, as you think about what that answer to that question would be, is what are like 2 traits and 2 values? If we get more narrow and specific, like if I had to choose, I could want lots of things. But 10 years from now, when I envision my child or children, so take time after tonight. If that's your first step, is figuring out what are those 2 traits and 2 values for each of my kid. And if you need to look up, okay, what are some values? Well, honesty is one. Integrity is another. Faith is one. There are lots of different values that we tend to not talk about those a lot, and they're definitely not talked about in the world outside of this room. So it's a matter of, what are those values? How do I know what those are? And how do I move forward, towards those? And so how to do that, one is to pray for the relationship. That's a next step. If you are watching tonight or in this room and you're thinking, that's great, but we are in a really hard place right now. I hear you. I've been there. And I would say, pray over that. And what I found is, if I pray for those that I'm struggling with, wherever that might be in my life, is that God gives me a heart for those people. And even if it's your child, he can help you to see things that you can't see right now. He can give you hope that I can't even give you. So know that that's your first step. It's always going to be your first step. It's like, go to God with it, because that's where our hope is. The second one might be to identify, like we said, identify what those traits and values might be. And if you want to get a bonus, maybe you do it for yourself as well. What are 2 traits and 2 values that I need to grow on? And then the hard thing to hear, that we don't always want to hear as parents, is what are you modeling at home? So those 2 traits and those 2 values, when you list those out, you have to look back in the mirror. And is there anywhere in life that I am not exempling these traits? Is it my relationship with my spouse, with someone I'm dating, with a friend? Do I talk about my coworkers and talk about them in a negative way? Do I talk about others? Am I just talking about hurt and pain that I've experienced in life? Or am I exempling these traits and values that I want to see in them? Because they have to see it somewhere, and they're probably not going to find it from anyone but you. You're the ones that believe in them and should believe in them, and I know you have, even if you're struggling with it right now. And I know you want good for them, or you wouldn't be here right now. And so in the middle of that, consider, how do I need to pray for my child and this relationship that I want? How do I need to speak into their life with these traits and values? Like, what are things I need to be exempling? And ask God to reveal, is there anything in my life that is going against what I'm hoping for them? Am I setting an example for them in any way that's taking them on the path that I don't even want them to be on, and that I definitely don't want to be on personally? So if we move to boundaries, there's a quote that a friend had given. I thought, that is so true. So boundaries are where you end and where your child, I adapted it a little bit, begins. So if I don't think about a boundary as a rule, and I think about it more as in, I'm giving this because at some point I need to end my parenting journey, just like Roger was talking about. At some point, they need to be equipped. And right now, whatever age, whatever stage your child is in, is what is the next step for them. Because that boundary helps set where you end and where they start making choices. I can force choices all day long, but their heart is not going to be in it. And left to their own choices, they're not going to align with those values. And so we have to give those opportunities, even at a young age of 2 into an age of 20, all the way in between, is what does that look like for me to end and for them to begin? So boundaries, there's an ARC framework that I've started using when I'm leading a lot of trainings, not necessarily with public, but more like even professionals and training them, and it's called the ARC. And the A stands for, we've got to assess, what is the need right now? And I don't know about you, but for me, a lot of times I need outside input, because I am very limited with my own gifts, abilities, and skill set that God has given me, and that I can have blinders on, unfortunately. And so sometimes I need someone else to speak into that need. So if you have others that are close to you, that you trust, you might need some help from them in that process. Like, am I focusing on the right thing? So what is the real need? The C, I'll jump to that one, is context. And it's what else matters. So as I'm looking at setting this boundary with my child and them beginning, is what my expectation is right now, is that even really doable? Because what other factors are going on in life right now? So that means, do we have some family transitions going on? Are there some grade issues? Are there some teacher issues? Are there some friend issues? Like, there are so many different things that can be going on in life that it's not just what you're focused on right now. It's not just that need. It's so much bigger than that. And for them as a child, depending on age and stage and all those types of things, they get overwhelmed too. And so what we're asking for can feel like a lot. And we're supposed to be the safe people, and so you try to set a boundary and for them to begin, and that can lead to a lot. So in the R, we've got to respond. And we've got to choose, what is my response going to be in this moment? And how am I going to model those traits and values that I would want them to be showing as well to me? So if I'm wanting respect from them, am I showing them respect? If I'm wanting them to be honest, am I doing the same in return to them? You know, it's hard, but consider, like, what's the need? What additional factors do I need to consider? What's that context? And then that R is to respond. But as a parent, I don't know about you, but I tend to react. There's a lot of reacting. There's emotions flying. There's all kinds of things. And it's hard in those moments to press pause again. And a lot of times when God's going to help me grow in an area or wants me to learn something, I had to pause for it. I had to spend time with him, or I had to pray, or I had to be willing to get input from someone else because my perspective is so narrow. And from there, there's a script. It comes from child-centered play therapy. So if you've ever experienced play therapy, had a child in play therapy, it's a really basic one. But it could give you a very basic framework if you even think about yourself as an adult. So if you are talking to a friend or to someone close to you, and you're talking about a really hard moment in life and something that happened, you know, it's you want blank, you feel blank. A lot of times we can feel like as parents, well, I'm not going to tell them, I know that you want that cookie right now, or I know you want to go out with that friend that I'm never going to let you go out with. Instead, we're not going to say that because we think, well, if I say that, it just makes them think they can. But if we acknowledge what it is, like, I know that you want friends. I know that you're hungry and that you want some food right now. I know that you were extremely frustrated with me. So it's acknowledging how they feel. It's not like you pull out the paper and read the script. But did you acknowledge what they were wanting? Remember, what's the need that they feel like they have? And what they think their need is may be very different than what you think it is. And then acknowledge what the feeling is. You move from there, it'd be like, but the cookie, the going out with that friend, but staying out all night, it's not an option. But you can do blank instead. So if I'm going to give a no, if I can give some kind of yes or alternative in some way instead of no, repeatedly, all day long, no, 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 and I can give some kind of yes. I would really encourage you, like, when I'm talking with my child, because if I'm in relationship with a friend, I want them to hear me. I want them to acknowledge what I'm going through. And maybe they give me some hard truth, and they're like, Rhonda, you're not focused on the right things. Now, I'm not going to love that, but it'd be like, okay, here's what I think you could focus on, or here's what I think a next step would be. And that will get you so much further just in being able to think about alternatives even yourself when you're struggling, and being able to example that then for your child as well. So it's a simple script on paper. I know it's hard in the moment, and it's just trial. It's doing things a little bit differently instead of reacting and matching their emotion and matching the frustration and matching what's going on at home. Is if I'm going to set this boundary, it's really hard news. This is going to be hard for my child to receive. I need to acknowledge that. It's hard for me to deliver, and sometimes we're anxious delivering it because we know the explosion that's coming after we do. But in the middle of that is keeping your eye on that long game. Like, what do I want things to look like 10 years from now? Not just, I want this nightmare in Walmart or Target to be over right now of them screaming. So and I've been there, so I understand. So next steps here would be pause before reacting. So we want to make sure that we assess the need. What are the other things I need to consider with the context? And the R, how am I going to respond? And to make sure I do that, we usually have to have a pause. And I know when I pause, I even have a face, and my daughter knows it. She calls me out, it's the face, Mom, you're making the face. And it's because I'm trying to make sure that I'm not making too much of a face, and that I'm not saying, no, that's an awful idea. But at the same time, I just, my face reveals, our faces reveal a lot. So those are things I work on too. And then we use the assess and respond and context, if that's a next step. And that last one can be practicing the script. If you're like, I really need to, have I been the last time, today, yesterday, whenever you had the last opportunity, an hour before you walked in the room, to be able to deal with your child in a way when they're struggling, am I really getting to the need? Am I considering the context? Am I responding in a way that is loving and kind to them, to example? And am I acknowledging those feelings and the struggle before I get to a limit? And that will help. So beliefs, at the core, were created by God. And that's what I mentioned as we got started. So I go back to, you were designed with a purpose. And no matter how old you are, God still wants to use you. When we align our hearts with Him, when we seek out what He wants for our lives, when we live by God's ways, He has a lot of good in store for us. And He has designed your child with a purpose too. And that piece of recognizing what I'm struggling with right now and what 10 years from now looks like can feel a long way away. It's like running a marathon. It's even longer. And I agree with you. But I can say on the other end that there is so much that can come out of that and just joy in a relationship when you've invested well. It's not going to be perfect. And it's not going to be the same as someone else's relationship with their child. It's going to be your relationship with your child. But if you see them through God's eyes, no matter what you've been through in life and no matter what they've been through in life, it doesn't matter. God uniquely wired them in the womb. And He's got a purpose. And more than that, He chose you to be their parent. He didn't choose the person beside you. And I know it can feel overwhelming. I know you feel ill-equipped, and I have been there many times too. But He did choose you, and He's equipped you with what you need to be their parent. You've just got to see them through His eyes. So a big piece of that is recognizing and considering, how often do I take the time to build up my child, or those around me for that matter, versus the times that they're getting feedback, the no, things they don't want to hear, things they need to work on, the room that's not clean, the person they shouldn't hang out with, whatever it is. So when you recognize that your greatest weakness and their greatest weakness is actually their greatest strength, and when you phrase it and put perspective on it that way, both when it comes out of your mouth and in your view of them, it can change things drastically. I can say from our kids' ministry, some of the hardest kiddos when they're young are sometimes leaders' kids, those who are serving a lot and leading out. And you know why? Because they have a voice like their parents. Now, they may not have learned to use it in the right way, but they've got motivation and drive and voice. They know what they want. I know for our child, she really struggled on the opposite end. It was like having a voice at all and telling others what we wanted. And that took forever. It was just learning to lead. But God can grow all of us into those traits, whether they were naturally given to us or not. When He has a purpose for us, and we have opportunities in front of us, then we can grow into those. It's not just what we're naturally gifted with. So using the excuse of, I'm just not good at that, or that's never going to happen for me. Well, it's not if you don't try. There are many ways in life that I have put myself in uncomfortable situations just to be able to say, if this is an opportunity I need to grow in and to take, then I want to do that. So we example that for our kids. We build them up. We need encouragement. Why wouldn't they need encouragement too? We know what we're failing at the majority of the time. We may not have the right perspective on it, but we know we're struggling. So some stories with that, to give, when it comes to our daughter, there's a couple of things, but I think ultimately you have to look beneath the behavior. So what I'm seeing right now is not really my need or the issue or what I need to respond to. There's a lot more things that can be underneath. And I need to acknowledge that in our home life or in their life or even in my personal life. And there's always more going on. I know if somebody asks me about a situation, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's just my personality, I'll let me give you context. There we get back to the C. And so there's like 5 or 10 other things that you need to know before you know that. And to me, they're all really important. And it's because it's not one simple solution. Even when someone comes into our practice, it's not one person and it's not one problem. There are layers. There may be years of hurt. There may be life experiences that have been sudden or long ago, and things add up, and they're hard. But going through life with your child and being able to want good for them and to see them through God's eyes, will get you closer to that 10-year goal. So on this one, the next steps would be pray for perspective. Like, how do I have that perspective that I need to have that's on that longer range and not just on today? How do I see the strengths that are behind this behavior that is driving me nuts, that I don't feel like I can handle even one more day, definitely not one more month, and I don't know what to do? I'm at a place of desperation. Is how can I see that strength? And how can I build up my child? Even the hardest kids, the ones that it seems like too much of life has happened. As a parent, I have messed up too much. There's just no hope. Someone very wise that I learned from early on would say, I've never seen a child that given love and attention and being intentional in relationship, that they can't come back from where they are. And I'd give you hope at that. Is that we all have those basic needs, and to receive that from others as well as from God. And we've got to model that and example that. So I gave you some bonus questions, because you need bonus questions too, right? Like, not bonus questions, but bonus steps. So those would be like, how do you bless your child? And how do you speak into their life by using that trait you want them to possess? So something we learned about early on in our home church when our daughter was young was an idea of each birthday that she had. What are some traits that go with the letters of her name? So it becomes an acronym of traits. And how do you frame that and speak that into your life, their life, of what you're hoping for this next year for them? And so maybe that's the next step for you, is like, it's not their birthday, who cares? You're about to hit summer, it's going to be a hard time, let's all acknowledge that. So go ahead and figure out, what are these traits that I'm hoping for them this summer, that I'm hoping they have, I'm hoping for myself as well. And maybe you need to get that printed out. You've got AI now, it'll help you put pictures in all kinds of things. You can frame that and stick it up. And that will be a reminder as well when you're trying to build up and you're just like, I need a word, I need something, what's a strength I can focus on? Go back to that list. If you've got it up somewhere, you'll see it. So if you even see a little sliver of hope in the direction of that trait, you can speak it out loud. So that's an easy way for us. I know eventually, like, our daughter just expected it. It wasn't that we even spoke the trait all the time, but on her birthday, like, where's my frame? She knew it was coming. And it's something you might even need to do for yourself. It's like, what are these traits that I need to strive for? So maybe you have one for you and one for them. And I didn't put it in the PowerPoint, but I think a big piece as a parent too, when you're wanting to look at boundaries, is I need to admit when I've messed up. And I can guarantee I am not perfect. And I think one of the best moments ever, with our daughter, I remember I'd get very anxious about different things and fearful about different things, and just what would happen if this happened and what would happen if that happened. And I remember we were in the car together, and she was old enough to have a conversation at this point. She was in the front seat. So I remember that, and just having to tell her when she's like, why are you yelling? Why are you so upset? And I said, why do you think? Like, what do you think mom is struggling with right now? And helping her see and pick up on the cues to know it's not about her. There are times I'm struggling and it's about me. And knowing she could pray for me as well. That she could speak out loud, Mom, you're anxious. That she could let me know, wow, that was loud. That she could call me out on things, not in a negative, disrespectful way, but when I needed it. And being able to know I need to ask forgiveness from her when I mess up so that she learns to do that too. And that if I do ask her for something, even though she doesn't want to do it, that she knows that she can do the same for me sometimes too. And that growth just takes time. So that's a bonus that I'll give you if that's helpful. So I can guarantee that it will be hard. I can guarantee that you've got to keep your eye on the future. I can guarantee that boundaries matter. They do. And what you believe about your child and your relationship with them, it will shape how you parent. I can guarantee that if you build up your child, you'll be so much closer to the relationship you want to have and to be a blessing to them. There are a couple of things that stood out as I was preparing for tonight and just stories that came to mind with those traits. And one was, I remember, it felt like a very long period of time, but we just had dishonesty going on. It wouldn't matter if I said, have you brushed your teeth? It wouldn't matter if I said, did you eat a cookie? It didn't matter what I was asking. It felt like I could never trust what was being said. And it was so frustrating. It was just lies. It felt like lies everywhere. No matter what it was. I remember pulling back her bed one time, and there was just an entire display of candy wrappers that she has eaten and put the wrappers behind her bed and been doing it for I don't know how long. I was just so frustrated because dental work was an issue in our household. And I remember, in the midst of that, like looking back now, I could have focused on the lying. I was focusing on the lying. But if I wanted to look at that as a strength, the reality is our daughter is one of the most intuitive people I have ever met in my life. And I'm a counselor. I don't have a lot of intuition. You just got to tell me how it is sometimes. But she can read a room faster than anyone I've ever met in my life. It's like a superpower. And that is a strength. But in those moments when I'm asking that question she doesn't want to hear, she just said what I wanted to hear. Because she knew what I wanted to hear, and she knew what the right thing was. So it did have intuition. It was a strength, and she uses it as a superpower now. But in those moments for many years, it was an extreme frustration of, why are you lying to me? Another would be, that there were just moments, as she grew up. I'm pulling it back up again. Yes. There were some moments we did a lot of different schooling over time and different ways of doing schooling. And there was a point in time where there was a lot of not being honest. Again, we got some dishonesty going on and just kind of like this cheating, I would say, on assignments. And it was at a point in time where she could look up the answers, the type of schooling we were doing. So in the middle of that, very frustrated. Like, how hard we're working. We're trying to accommodate your needs. We've made some changes in how we're doing schooling, all these things, and you're just pressing easy button over and over and over. But do you know that we did some testing, just a year or two later? And do you know that we knew there were some struggles, but we had no idea how many struggles there were when it came to school? And it doesn't change the expectations or the classes you take or what you finish, the classes you finish and what has to be fulfilled to be able to graduate and all those kinds of things that she finished. But it sure did change my perspective. Because what felt like dishonesty and pressing easy button and just not trying very hard really was that she wasn't fully equipped. And we hadn't given her everything she needed to be successful. Now, we didn't know that and she didn't know that. But in the end, there are a lot of things I look back on that I'm like, oh, that was a lot to ask. Or wow, it was really hard to take, I'm sure. Because for me, I learn very differently than she does. And it was like, it should be so simple. Easy button. It should be simple. We're telling it to you. Why have we talked about the same topic for 3 or 4 days in a row and gone over the same questions, and one day you know it and one day you don't? It's a big black hole. So it goes back to whatever the struggle is, just know there's more underneath. There is a strength that's there. And her strengths, she is so creative. I do not have a lot of creativity, I feel like, and she has a lot. So if you look for what those traits are and you speak those out loud, then you'll build them up in the process, and that will be meaningful to both of you in the end. So I am ready when you are. And I'll flip it. So that's the counseling practice. If after today, you're like, we really need a next step. So our tagline is every age, every stage, because we're here to go through life with you, whatever that age and stage might be. So our goal is to have staff that meet each of those needs and are of a variety of ages and stages, just like it is for the clients that we serve. So if that's a help to you, I've tried to give you plenty of next steps outside of that. But if you need some accountability and support, we're there.
Well, was that great? Let's give it up for Dr. Rhonda Johnson. Well, we have a ton of questions.
Uh-oh.
Yes, a ton. Hey, keep texting those questions in. Not very often do you get someone like here free to be able to answer your questions. So we want to take advantage of it.
Sure.
And hey, we're going to go rapid fire.
That's great. I went a little over on time. I apologize for that.
And I love this one because I can resonate with this one when I have my kids.
Okay.
What advice do you have for parents that follow the boundary script and are met with resistance along the way, especially from the toddlers who just love the word no? Yes.
Well, I can guarantee that you're going to be met with resistance. That's just about going to happen, because part of it is, as a parent, we have to be able to have some consistency. And I think, Roger, when you and I talked, and we talk about it in the office, so that was really fun to me, is you talked about rhythms. And there have to be like some rhythms and some consistency built in. So if you think, oh, I'm going to give this gift of this script and it's going to magically change their life, no. You're going to have to do it again and again and again, because they're testing you to see what your response is going to be, and are you going to example what you're wanting to see from them. So I would absolutely expect it. It's not a magic key, but it is consistency, and it will let them feel heard and to know that you understand how they felt and what they want, and you're setting a limit. And so it's a start. It won't work forever and ever and ever, but it's a great start. So stick with it.
But that's the hard thing with parenting, what you just were saying, is just letting them know that you hear them, you hear what they're feeling. Answer's still no.
Yes.
Right? But that's that hard part.
It is.
All right. This is a good one.
Okay.
Okay. How do you gain trust back from your kid after he has lied, stole, and broken our trust on much more than one occasion, to the point where we can't believe anything they say?
I mean, I want to acknowledge the weight of that and how difficult that is. But I am a believer that God can change anyone's heart. And I think that's that piece of, it's not about trusting him. I think it's about trusting that God can work in his heart. And I think continuing to pray and not giving up. You know, we all have probably unbelievers in our families or those around us, those we pray for years. That's not a one-time prayer, and it's not a one-month prayer, and it may be years of prayer. But I think acknowledging, for me, is that piece of like, is there anything I need to ask forgiveness for as a parent? Is there anything I've done, and I probably have, to get us to where we are today? And have they really heard from me that I acknowledge, you know, my part in not being able to be available, or in the number of transitions that took place, or in a separation from their parent, or, you know, their dad, their mom, whoever it is, whatever it is. So I would look at that first. Do I need to ask forgiveness? And then I think that piece of really praying for them and continuing to let them know that you believe in them. Like, I love you. I know that you can make good choices. I know that inside, you're truly someone who cares about other people, even if you don't see it. Because you've got to speak out what you want to see. And just speaking out what you're seeing, they're going to hear that everywhere. So it's going to be hard. But
And I got a follow-up question on that for you, too. I think would really help as parents is when you're lied to, when you're betrayed in that way, it really hurts.
it does.
Right? It closes our heart down. Where we don't really want to say, I believe you. It's what's your advice really for that parent? How, because the maturity level of the child is not there to really make it right. But how do you help us as parents to kind of rise above that game to continue on doing? Because I agree with 100% what you're saying, but sometimes I really don't want to do that.
Absolutely. How many times has God forgiven me?
70 times 7, right?
Yep.
It says.
How many times does he tell us to forgive? You know, should I have been forgiven, and do I deserve any of the things that I have in life? And we talk about that often, you know, in our church as well, is just, I don't deserve anything. So why am I searching for some easy button thinking I deserve something? I did nothing for my salvation and for the relationship with him. And why am I requiring so much more from those around me? So I've got to put my trust in God versus a trust in my child.
Dr. Johnson, we're getting a lot of questions about co-parenting and blended families.
Yeah.
Is what you discuss is how do we get in unity when we got one child and then they go to the home of the other parent and maybe a different set of rules. So, but how does that work in the sense of, here's the question, how do you uphold boundaries in homes where you share custody?
Yeah.
One parent sets rules, boundaries, but the other parent doesn't support or believe in the boundaries, so it's constant back and forth battle.
No, it is. Well, and I think I'll add another factor into that is sometimes if you're the parent trying to set some of those boundaries and the other one has no boundaries, and so, you know, of course they love being at the other parent's house because that is a free-for-all, you know, on whatever it might be. And that is oh so hard. It is hard. I think you have to remember that your child did not ask to be in that situation. They didn't ask to be with parents, you know, who weren't together. You didn't ask for that necessarily either. You know, you didn't have that intention probably going into the relationship, nor when you had your child. So I think there's a piece of having peace and, again, trusting God that if I am doing the right things and focusing on the right things that we've been talking about tonight, is that God can sway my child's heart and he can help to hone them in on traits and values even when they're at the other home, even when they're with other people. I'm going to try to spend as much time with them as I can. So if I'm in that situation, I'm honestly not going to spend every night in lessons and practices and all those things because I know that they need me because it's already shared, and it can be hard then if you're not getting much time with them as well. So I would consider those pieces, but you can't change that other household. If you try to do that, they're just going to fight back, and it's just going to be worse. So there's not really co-parenting in what you're describing to some degree. So if you can co-parent well and it's amicable, then absolutely, like, work together. But if you know it's not, then you pray about what they're exposed to, about what they have access to, about who they're surrounded by, and you ask God to intervene in ways that only he can when you're not there.
We're getting questions on consequences, and love the way this is worded. Do you believe in timeouts?
all the fun questions.
Well,
So,
and then they just said, or is it shaming the child? How do you discipline?
yeah. So, okay, there are a lot of perspectives out there on parenting. There are so many books that are out there. Who even has time to read all of them? But there are a lot of different viewpoints. So I do think you have to go from the perspective of each child. What works with one child in your home is probably not going to work with the next one. You know, sometimes we can get that firstborn and we're like, wow, I'm doing good. Like, this is going great. You know, and then you have the second child and you're like, whoa, whole other ballgame. And then the third, you know, on and on and on. So I think there's that piece of acknowledging it's not going to work with every child that we have. And with consequences, you've got to know what's meaningful to that child. Time out may really be hard for one of them, but if you gave time out to another one, they're totally happy, and that's a great time for them. They're introverted. They might enjoy playing alone. It just depends on the child and who they are. So I think you try to figure out, like, what is meaningful to them, not so I can get them and make them, experience the worst consequence ever, but knowing what my neighbor's using is not necessarily what's going to work for me. And so if being with the family, time out, you can do timeouts. What you don't want to do is do timeouts to the point that they're like excluded from the family and you're not a part of us. So if we can do it in a way to where we're acknowledging we're taking a pause and we're taking a break because we both need one right now, that may be your go-to consequence. Another one, it might be something else. So I think those can get very one-on-one based, but yeah.
And this is my last one. We got so many good ones, but I thought this was very interesting is because you talk a lot about building up the child. This question is there such a thing as saying, I love you, I'm proud of you, too much?
Oh.
It seems like I say this many times a day to my children. Is there a point where it becomes too much?
Okay. It can be. If it is more about our need, so if what you're doing is to meet your need as a parent and not your child's, like I need to hear as a parent that I'm loved repeatedly. So I say, I love you, so that I can keep hearing it back. That's when we get into territory that's hard. Because it's not about meeting your child's needs or building them up. When it comes to I'm proud of you, I think you've got to be careful, because I'm going to be honest. If someone tells me I'm proud of you, I'm like, yeah, you're just saying that. Like, I'm already hard on myself anyway, but that's pretty generic. So that's why you go to those traits and values, is like, you shared with your friend, you really care about others. You made that picture just how you wanted to make it, not, oh, you did such a great job. There can be like a praise component, and we start operating on praise, but it's got to be more from the heart, and they know if you're being real or not. Let's be real. So I know if somebody really cares or if they're just speaking, just to say something. So I do think, can you say, I love you too much or I'm proud of you too much? Yes, if it's about you and not about them. But I think the other piece of that is make it more specific and speak to the future, again, of what you're hoping for versus just saying it to say it, because then that can make them even more self-centered. Oh, it's all about me. Mom's proud of me all the time.
Yeah.
So I think calling that out.
You mentioned bless your child on that. And there's a great book out there called The Blessing on it, 5 ways how to really bless your child. And it's really something they all need before they leave home. It's a classic book, but I thought it was fantastic. Used it in my family, used it with my kids. And I think it's just a great resource for parents is to get the book called The Blessing.
That's great. And I have not read that one. I've heard of it, but I have not read it yet.
Yeah,
so.
it's 5 things, and a lot of it is like speaking to their future
That's awesome.
Seeing what they're really good at. And then you kind of just start speaking that into it. I can really see you would be a fantastic teacher. You explain things so well, and it's kind of going along with what you're doing. So if you need a resource that will help you with the blessing, it's really vital. All of us want to be blessed by our parents.
Yes.
Great resource. So, hey, can you guys give it up for Dr. Rhonda Johnson?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. Really quick, I just want to share a few things with you. One, for being here, thank you very much. But also is we have a thing called Dinner for 8, and it's something that we do to really help connect people. It's kind of an opportunity to get with your people. But here's the thing is for parents. If you're married with kids, married with teens, is we want to get you together with a host. A host that's kind of been there before, not to tell you what to do, but really to have conversation. Just as I was seeing these questions, is a chance for you to discuss with other people right where you are in your season of life, but be able to have great conversations, be able to ask things, because there's something about being with a group of people, eating food together, but also seeing like, hey, we're kind of normal on it. There's a lot of time as parents, nothing more humbling than being a parent, but being around other people is awesome to be able to discuss our parenting challenges and being able to ask hard questions, but being able to have a host that can speak to what they experience in their life. So join Dinner for 8. You can text the number right here to be a part of that, and we will place you in that group. It's great, just for the summertime, and that's something you can be a part of. But also, we have our Young Marrieds Night Out. We want to invest in our young families. We want to invest in you, so join our Young Marrieds Night Out. This is going to be roller skating. How many of you guys love roller skating when you were little? How many are afraid you're going to break a hip now? Yes, you can do it. And it's a great thing for you to do. But here's what's even better, is you get to go out and have fun, bring your kids, and they're going to have fun here because we're going to do VBS with them. Great time for them to learn about Jesus. Also have a lot of fun doing crafts and other things while you are out partying, skating around in circles, trying to hold hands with each other, tripping each other, having fun like you guys were in 5th and 6th grade. Any high school sweethearts here, middle school? All right, good. You guys can relive those days on that. Thank you so much for being here. And again, if you didn't fill out the connection card, please fill out the connection card. Put on there what future topics you want to hear about, because we really do want to help equip you as best as we can. Thank you again for being here. I'm going to pray, and then we're done. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for being here in our midst, Lord, and just knowing that you created us, and what a gift you allowed us to be as parents. Lord, I pray for blessings and favor upon every parent here as they go. Lord, that you just continually give them wisdom, give them patience. As, Lord, as they are bringing up children that you put in their home, you put in their care, Lord, most of all to love you. And, Lord, to be able to go out and be a light for your kingdom. Lord, we pray that in your Son's name, Jesus. Amen. Thank you.